Hello and welcome to Where Do We Begin? I'm Alex Winwood, flyweight boxer for Australia. Let's go.
Thanks for that, Alex. My name is Harper and my co-host is back after a couple weeks off, a little stint on the sidelines. He's Lockie. How are you, Lockie?
I'm good, thanks, Harps. And I'd just like to thank you, all our fans there, for the thousands of DMs that we received asking where I was and asking for me to come back. I was off doing a bit of study, and don't worry, your messages received us. They were heard. And as you can see, you got what you wanted. Lockie's back on the show and he's back to talk to another amazing guest. Harps, tell us a little bit about Alex.
Yeah, Alex, what an awesome guy to speak to. Awesome, excellent guest. He's got some huge ambitions, this guy, and seriously, some really interesting, really controversial, perhaps, takes on lots of things that you'll find out about. And when you find out about him throughout the podcasts, because podcasts are nothing without a bit of community, remember to use the hashtag on Twitter, be a part of a conversation, hashtag WDWB Olympics, wherever you want, really, hashtag WDWB Olympics, join the conversation, get into it. Lockie, what do you say? I reckon we just dive in, mate.
Let's dive in.
Okay, guys, now I'm very, very excited for this one, particularly because I've been looking forward to having a guest on the show who weighs a bit less than me, and we've got what we wanted here, because that's just the nature of his sport, really. He's a flyweight boxer, being the Olympic series. He's going to the Olympics to represent Australia. We're going to cheer him on, and he goes by the name of Alex Winwood. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, not bad. Yourselves?
Oh, absolutely stoked to have you on and thrilled to get the chance to have a chat with you today, Alex. It is an absolute pleasure. And you were just telling us off air about your training schedule, and mate, I don't know how you do it. Can you talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so usually I work a full-time job, so it's nowhere near as full-on, but being in camp, being able to do this full-time, it's like 16 sessions a week, broken up to 2 days, back-to-back three sessions, and then Wednesday's a little bit of a cool-off with only 2. And then Thursday, Friday, another 3 sessions both days. And then Saturday is just either maybe 2, depending on if we're sparring or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, so something that I just want to cover off quickly, because obviously in this Olympic series, we're covering a whole range of sports. On the previous episode, we had a woman for representing Australia for Taekwondo. So we're just trying to get all the guests to... lots of the sports are a bit obscure, so we're getting the guests to kind of explain how you win in your sport. Really, boxing's pretty well known, but just for the guests that don't know, how do you win a boxing bout in the Olympics? Obviously, you're flyweight, yeah?
Yes, so our fights are judged per round. Each round, the winner will receive 10 points. The loser will receive 9 or less, depending on how big of a difference that round was. So if it was a close round, they'll get 9 points. If it was a dominant round, or if they got a point, or they got dropped multiple times, it'll go 8 points, 7 points, 6 points, so forth, so on. And so you pretty much have to win 2 of 3 rounds over the course of the bout on 3 of the 5 judges. So 3 of the 5 judges have to give you 2 rounds.
Yeah, and how does it work to qualify for the Olympics in boxing? Like, can any of the, I guess, the really well-known boxers, like can Floyd Mayweather, can he qualify for the Olympics, or is it a bit different to that?
Yeah, so it used to be just amateurs alone. So you wasn't allowed to be pro. That's changed since Rio. Now you can be a pro and compete at the games, but you still have to go through all the qualifying systems. And your country has to select you to represent them at a qualifying event. So that's where I qualified in Jordan, and I had to box off against 3 other countries to win my spot.
Does that mean that, do you think that this game is going to be, games are going to be even more competitive in the fact that now you have professional and amateurs at the tournament?
I don't think it makes too much of a difference. The best amateurs in the world could beat some of the best pros in the world, depending on what weights you're looking at, and the course of the fight's different compared to a pro bout. They got multiple rounds to do what they need to do, but over a three round fight, anything can happen. You only need to lose, the first 2 rounds, and that's the fight gone. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I've been doing a bit of research. So obviously you're an amateur and your full-time job, I think you might be taking a bit of time off it at the moment, but usually are you an apprentice electrician for a shipbuilding company? Is that correct? Is that what I've found out? Is that information correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So I work for BAE Systems. It's a British-based company, but they have an Australian sector, and we contract out to the Defence Force and do Navy build ships, and even they do jet building and that there. So covers all of the Defence Force departments. Yeah.
Mate, that's unreal.
So obviously, working full time, it's got to be so hard trying to be like this elite, be at the highest level you possibly can be, but still like self-funding and getting all this training in. I can't even imagine like how much kind of stress you're under trying to be kind of balance both things, really.
Yeah, it's been it was a choice that I had to make back in, I think it was 2018 or 2017, to take up work just because boxing wasn't obviously paying the bills. I missed out on con game selection, and everyone has to make a living. Then I did choose to go to look for an apprenticeship. Luckily that I found the best company to support me. That they allow me to go do what I need to do, and they've given me an extensive amount of time each year as a benchmark events come up, like a World Championships, things like that. Now, obviously, the games.
So obviously you're training a lot at the moment, as we touched on earlier, but when you are obviously also working full time, how much can you get trained, and how hard is that in the fact that you're doing a really physical job as well, and then you have to go and train afterwards?
Yeah. So back home, usually it might be two times a day or once a day throughout the working week. And in the morning I'll train out, like I start work at 6. So I'll start my first session at 4:15 and get about an hour in, and then head off to work, and then followed up by boxing specifically in the afternoons, all the way up till the Friday. Yeah, and then just like a bit of pad work or sparring on the weekend with my coach.
Yeah, and kind of looking into it a bit, you haven't been boxing for that long, only since about 2013, I believe. So how'd you get into boxing? Because obviously it's pretty, like, it's a big decision going into boxing because it can be potentially a very dangerous sport. How'd you get into it when you were, how old, you 16, 15?
Yeah, so I was 15 when I started training. My coach came down to our high school. He ran some boxing classes once a week, and then a couple of us got asked if we wanted to go do it outside of the school. I didn't take that offer up until maybe the December school holidays, when I just ran into him in the street, and after that, the rest is history. And
And you must have obviously become quite proficient in the sport quite quickly, because you were close. Were you close to qualifying in 2016 in Rio, which mustn't have been too far after?
Like I went to the selection event and things like that. It was the first time I won a national title and was on the Australian team. As I won one fight in my first qualifying tournament, and then I lost in my second. I think I had to win 3 consecutively to qualify for them games. But I was only new. I was only boxing for like 3 years at that point. It was a bit of an achievement to get there and have my eyes opened up properly to what was ahead of myself. At that time, it was the first time that Australia had to qualify through Asia. So it was Oceania, Asia at the same time. Usually before that, like London and before, it was just go to Oceania. You qualify in Oceania, so we'd have to be competing against New Zealand and Papua New Guinea and things like that. And the only person I beat when I went to the Asian tournament was New Zealand, and he probably would have been my only opponent if I was to box in Asia. But I'm glad that it didn't happen the first time, because I wasn't experienced enough. I got shown what a world-class amateur was, and, now we're here today.
Yeah, and I believe your great-grandfather, he was a bit of a name in the boxing world as well. So has that been a bit of an influence on you, kind of getting the inspiration to take boxing as far as you can and push yourself as hard as you have?
Yeah, my pop, Brian Bennell, which was my nan's brother, he did box as a pro, but I didn't know that until after I started. And my grandfather even boxed in the tents and things like that, and a lot of his cousins on my mum's side. But a lot of these conversations didn't happen until after I started fighting, and then I was told later on. And I think I just gravitated to it because probably the physique that I had, the stature, I wasn't built for football. I was a bit small. So once I got to compete against people my own size, I think yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up around these people and they just kind of didn't tell you that, what is it, your great uncle that was a pro boxer? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I never met him. He passed away before I was born. But my pop never told me about his boxing in the tent, and that back in the day was once boxing was in the golden era of it, back in the 70s and 80s and things like that. But it's the conversations that I had later on in life was things that I cherish. It kind of bring things full circle.
Yeah, and I know being an Indigenous man as you are, you've said in some interviews that I've watched and listened to that kind of storytelling is a big part of your identity. Now, I'm guessing your family's had a big influence on you for that. So can you touch on that a bit and tell us a bit about that part of your identity?
Yeah, so I'm a Noongar man. So I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and that's where my tribe is from. And I've just been immersed in the culture since I was young. So it hasn't been until I've grown up and I've had the privilege to learn more and then understand that not everyone had the privilege that I did. Some people only, once they become an adult, can identify with our Aboriginal culture and things like that. And I'm a very fortunate person to have lived that, and now to be able to share my experience and find out about other people's heritages and things like that.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear about, I guess, your connection to your past and your heritage. Just moving on, something that I find just crazy is the fact that so you have to fight at 52 kilos, and for somebody that, mate, I can barely keep underbody triple digits, mate, how do you go about that? Like, it must be so incredibly tough to not only train, but your diet must have to be such each thing so specific to keep and make sure that you're the correct weight for a fight.
Yeah, so I've never tried to cut too hard. I've always tried to do it in a sensible way, as in, like, a lot of people dehydrate way too early, and it's definitely not the right thing to do. And I've just had to speak to the nutritionist yesterday to make sure my weight's near where it needs to be, and I'm at the moment just not having enough calories and my weight's starting to drop a bit too early. So we're trying to get a hold of that, make sure that the food that I've got access to going overseas and things like that is still going to be relevant. And because I've been to some camps, like camps and fights and things like that, and the food's completely different, and you don't know how much you need to eat and things like that, especially when you're going out of your home environment. So it's been an education on myself. Like, not too many boxing coaches very, very clicked on with the weight. It's all about sweating it out. And now with the new day and age and all the science behind it, it's going to be a lot safer because, people have unfortunately passed away for things so trivial as this.
Really?
Yeah, there was a girl back in Perth that I think she was getting ready for a amateur kickboxing tournament or boxing tournament, and she was out sweating one day and collapsed and just never recovered.
Oh, gee whiz, mate. That's that's horrible. And I guess back in the day, it would have been a lot of sauna sessions and stuff, like you said, to sweat it out, get all that water weight out. But I'm interested. So, what is your maintenance like? How many calories do you intake on a day on a training day compared to a non-training day?
Well, at the moment, it needs to be like over 2,000, but it definitely hasn't been there for the last couple of days, and that's why I know I'm pulling up sore. So I'm trying to really get a hold of that right now. We need to be within 5% over our fight weight, so that's like 3.6 kilos for me. And I'm hitting like the 2.5 mark right now, so I need to bump them calories up. make sure that before and after every session that I'm refueling and getting ready for the next session, because to do this amount of training is very taxing on your body. I don't think too many other sports understand, from a boxing perspective, the amount of effort that we put into every session. Not too many of them are cruisy. We don't have a season or anything like that. It's like 10 weeks to actually get ready. So the 10 weeks is full on, and then after you come off one camp, you might have a few weeks, to rest or whatever, and then you're straight back into it, and you have to carry that same execution in every session on the next block and the next block, and then before you know it, you've just done a whole year at going 110%. When I used to play footy and things like that, it was more about like you'd have a day off and things like that in between, but we're just lucky to have a couple of hours off in between sessions throughout the day.
Mate, just going back to your 2,000 calories comment, that isn't a lot though, because the average daily intake is 2,000 calories, and you're training 3 times a day, 110%. Like your body would use up all that fuel. Like that's crazy. That I would have expected it to be a lot higher, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it really needs to be like 3,400.
Oh,
but
easy.
Yeah, that's why I need to weigh up all the food I've been eating lately, because I spoke to her yesterday and then she's like, "Oh, tell me what you've been eating." And I just said something. She goes, "Far out, you're not even having 2,000 calories a day." I was like, I'm thinking, no, maybe I sneak some snacks in there somewhere. I was like, I don't think I was too specific as to what I was telling her. But hopefully she lets me know what's going on. Like my job is to box, and as long as all our support staff are there to help us out in these other aspects, so hopefully all is good.
Is it quite mentally draining having to count out each bit of food and having to be so meticulous with your diet and your training? And like you said before, the fact that it's 365 days a year, you're lucky to get a couple of hours off. It must be really tough mentally just sort of keep up with that and always stay motivated. Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot of boxers, especially that really they do struggle because we're not at home most of the time as well. We're usually away in camp or abroad, and besides just training full time all the time, you don't get to talk to people that you're usually hanging around with and being comfortable and all that. So I think boxing as a sport itself, you have to be mentally strong. So you wouldn't find too many people at the top that don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah, and in the previous episode, we spoke to someone who's in another kind of weight division Olympic sport, Taekwondo athlete Stacey Heimer. So I just, for all these sports with weight divisions, I've just got to, I imagine it, everything you do is just in the back of your head, or even at the front of your mind, you're thinking about, fuck, how's this going to affect my weight? It's just got to completely take over your life, eh?
Yeah, some people get pretty OCD about it. Even the closer it gets to comp, when you have to jump on the scales, because pretty much you get a set of test scales before you actually get on official scales, and they would be set at 100 grams heavier than the other ones. So if you're technically on or 100 grams over on them, you should be right to get on the official scales, because once you get on there, you don't get a second chance. So if you weigh heavy, you're out of the competition. So I've heard of people so dehydrated that when they get on the test scales, they'll put a bit of water in their mouth just to see how much they are with that in their body, so they could swallow it before they have to go back and jump on the real scales.
And just quickly, I don't think it's actually been brought up. Your weight that you have to be under is 52 kilos, yeah?
Yeah, so we have to be on 52 kilos or under. You can't be above.
Mate, that's crazy. And it sounds like you're saying, it sounds really unsafe. Is eating disorders, I've got no idea, I haven't done any research, is eating disorders quite prevalent among the sport just due to the fact that this has to be such intense cuts leading up to competition? Yeah,
definitely so. There's a lot of people that, crash diet all the time. I've been guilty of it myself in the past. So, we'd be really strict for a fortnight, for a month, whatever it takes to get to the goal. And then after that, it's just you've already starved yourself, and sacrificed all the good meals and things like that, and you just go ham, and people blow out, and that's where you'll see a lot of boxers, especially on the pros, because they get a day weigh in, that they'll be like 7 kilos, 10 kilos over what they just weighed in the day before.
Yeah, I've actually in the office, a girl that used to work in the same office as me, she's actually like, she did amateur fighting and stuff, and she did that. She did crash dieting, so like she'd eat whatever she'd want, then suddenly get 10 weeks before the competition, and basically for 10 weeks would have like one smoothie a day, and that was it.
Yeah,
and definitely. It's just like, I'm like, how do you do, like, why would you try to lose such a high, I guess, so much kilos in such a short like amount of time? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely not smart, and I hope there needs to be more education around it in our sport, and it's getting there. Hopefully, something needs to be done on a broader scale. But that's where I think a lot of ex-athletes that started to understand that later in their career need to hang around to educate younger people.
Yeah, now we've covered some dark stuff. I've got one more kind of section about some kind of depressing stuff.
It's not all doom and gloom here, we promise, Alex.
It will get lighter in just a few minutes, I promise you. But in boxing, of course, the sport of boxing, most contact sports, big issue right now, I don't think it's going away anytime soon, concussion. So, like boxing, obviously, it's just massive issue because like you're smashing people in the head all over the place. So what's your kind of take on how it's being governed, how the governing bodies are all dealing with the issue of concussion in boxing at the moment?
In my last few tournaments, we've had concussion tests before on our first fight and then on our last fight. So we just put like VR goggles on, and there's a ball that will pop up on the screen, and you have to. They're testing your reaction to see how fast you're looking at them. But I personally do think that there should be head scans annually, if that, because, besides competing, you spar way more than you compete. You might do like 1,000 rounds for 3 rounds. So I think there's a lot more damage done in the gym than there is in fights. Yeah,
and do you know anyone that's kind of had to quit boxing that in your age or older, do you know anyone personally that's had to quit boxing because of concussion issues?
Yeah, one of my early opponents had to chuck it in because he had something wrong with his brain, and apparently if he did box on, there could have been one punch that sealed his fate. But I'm glad that he got a hold of that and looked into it because it's not mandatory, and I really do think it should be. I personally think once I turn pro that I'll be doing concussion tests and that there more often and getting head scans just to make sure it's your life that you're gambling with, and at the end of the day you have to provide for more than yourself and your family, so you can't be playing with your health.
Yeah, it must be really scary. And I know just an example. I know from footy, there have been heaps of sports, but Polly Farmer recently passed away, the ex-Cats ruckman, and he was found to have big CTE, concussion issues in his brain, in an autopsy, I guess. But it's just kind of devastating the toll it takes, and for so long was just not talked about at all. And it's only been in the last few years, really, that it's even been brought up.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, I've watched that movie, Concussion, and once I looked at that, it was just like, you do get a bit scared, but I think you have to be self-aware and honest to people in your camp that actually how you're feeling. Like, I don't know if I've been dinged in a fight or in a sparring match that it won't go past that, and I'll say, all right, I'm done, and I'll go sit down, and my coach is more than happy to leave me alone for a couple of days. But there's guys out there that have been stopped in fights and then they're not meant to be competing for or even sparring for the next 30 days and they're straight back in there. And it's just an ego thing. And, the culture around that needs to change.
Yeah, I'm interested. Have you ever had any concussions, like whether from training or from just a boxing match?
I don't think so. I've been, dazed a little bit and things like that. But I got concussed when I was playing footy. I went out for a mark and I fell on my back and I smashed my head on the floor.
Oh no!
And that is when I knew, like, comparing that to other things and speaking to the doctors and that. I don't know. I don't think that I've actually been concussed in a boxing match. Or
So what is
even
it?
in
Yeah.
sparring.
Okay, so well, that's good that you've never had to experience that. But what is the current protocols in the sport? Because I know, like Harper said, in the fact that there's a lot more research into it. It's gone from potentially like 1 week to, I know like the AFL's currently got a 12-day policy. But even I've spoke to my cousin who's a doctor, and she recommended 6 weeks off after a concussion. What in boxing, like how long would it be if you got concussed in a sparring or in a match? How long till you would be back in the ring?
I think that the first time it happens, it's 30 days. If it happens again within 6 months of that first time, it's 6 months after that, and then so forth and so on, and it gets progressively worse. So I think after the next one, I think there's a period within a year or something. If you get concussed again, then you have to have 2 years off. But who regulates that? I'm unsure, because at the end of the day, they can just go back and start training and things like that, or go somewhere else. But it's up to the individual to listen to the advice that they've been given and take it serious.
Yeah, it's just got to be so scary. Like your first concussion, even if it ends up being your last one, it could just like completely haunt you and mess you up for the rest of your life. And like even worst case scenario, even take your life. And that, mate, like, are there real fears that you've had over the years throughout your boxing career about how you could be affected by concussion and just taking constant hits in general?
Not anything more than like being worried about a swollen hand or anything like that. I think I don't take punishment in an excessive amounts on a regular basis. So, I might have the odd one tough fight or the odd one tough hit, but it's never too consecutive. And I think if you are starting to get to that point in your career where you can't seem to protect yourself, it's time to leave the sport.
Yeah, I can tell, mate, and I think you're obviously doing it with like the best attitude that you can, and it's fortunate in the fact that you haven't had to face concussions too much. And like I said, now we'll move on to a few more positives. Now let's talk about your Olympic qualifying and how was that? So it was over in Jordan in 2019,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Amman, Jordan. In 2020, I think it was March.
It was meant to be in Wuhan, funnily enough.
Yeah, 5 weeks beforehand, when pretty much before anyone kind of knew about COVID, was getting like videos. Your default microphone has changed to microphone. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All
Just
good.
keep going.
Okay. So 5 weeks before it got rescheduled, was meant to go to Wuhan and was training in India, and was seeing all the videos and things like that was going on in China. I was like, don't know what's about to happen here. And then the coaches pretty much told us, like, look, we don't think that the Olympic Committee is going to allow you to go qualify, even if it's still on. And a couple of the boys wasn't too happy about the whole situation. Like, a lot of people put everything they have from that, like, put their life on hold to qualify for this. And by the end of the week, like 2 days before I was about to fly out, then the whole tournament got scrapped from where it was meant to be held in Wuhan. And then they said they're going to post a later date, so we had to fly home back to Australia. I think the week later, then they told us it was going to be in Jordan in 4 weeks at that point. So we had like maybe 5 days or something back home, and then that's when we're straight back into camp. Went over to Canberra and then over to Thailand for the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
and it's just got to be the best feeling, kind of winning that final fight, and in a fight off, I believe. So it was really like qualified at the last minute kind of thing, and especially considering some of the challenges you face, which we might touch on a bit later. And I know you said going into the competition that you're not going there to make up numbers. You're not going there to take a loss. So you're feeling pretty confident heading in. But even still, pure ecstasy. That's got to be one of the best days of your life, surely, winning that bout, that fight.
Yeah, it was surreal. Like, they had changed how they was allowing. They wanted, since Rio, there was a couple of controversy losses and decisions. So they really had to clean up the sport for Tokyo. And one of the decisions that they made is to show the crowd and the corner what the score was from the last round. So this was the first time it's been trialled. And first round that I got lost by 3-2. So I had two judges. He had 3. Second round, same thing. So technically I thought I lost, but two of the judges both swapped over. 4 of the judges swapped over and one stayed with him, which just meant that even though I lost 3-2 2 times, that the scores were both tied because it was 10-9, 10-9. So both of us was 19 apiece, except for the last judge, which had him 20 up. And then going into the last round, I thought I already lost. So I was like, well, I need to go try to stop him. This is the only way that I can win this fight. And pretty much from that start of that first bell to the end of it, in the third round, it was just like go for me. And I was pretty confident that I won by 10-8 in the last one, but my coaches obviously read the score wrong. Then they figured it out, and then they said, "Mate, you might have a chance here." And I've walked back. I was like, "Yeah, I feel like I've won that. If any bloody fucking fight that I've ever competed in, I was like, I've won this one." And sure enough, yeah, when they called it out, just like everything went blank, and yeah, it's just yeah, it was a moment of ecstasy, and definitely like one of the prouder moments in my boxing career.
Mate, that's unbelievable. That's incredible story, and that's just so awesome. How was it going? Like you said, that ecstasy of qualifying to the Olympics, like achieving your dream, to just a couple months later hearing it would be cancelled, and you'd have to keep training though and staying fit indefinitely.
Yeah, I think it was only like 3 weeks later that, or maybe a month later that, that they let us know that either Australia wasn't going if it went ahead. So that was a bit of kick in the guts, but then the whole thing got postponed. So I was very relieved at that point. And, you know, I couldn't cry about myself because the whole world was going through something. And I just think, you know, there's people way worse off than me trying to go to a competition. You know, people are losing their lives and their loved ones and their businesses and their livelihoods. So, you know, trying to keep myself in perspective against the world, you know, is what got me through last year.
And being in these Olympics, I guess, to use one of the all-time biggest words this podcast's ever heard, got to be really juxtaposed with some of the challenges that you've had to face leading up to it, which you've spoken about, but I haven't really been able to work out or find you speaking about specifically what some of those challenges are. So would you mind kind of delving into some of the big ones? I know missing out on the Commonwealth Games must have hurt, for example.
Just quickly before Alex answers that, if any other listeners had to get out a dictionary to work out what juxtapose means, you're not the only one. I've got no bloody idea.
No, neither do I. Yeah, like I felt like at one point in my career throughout a full year, only competed back home, and I felt like the judging was being unfair against me. I don't know why. There was almost a good amount of 8 fights that I felt like I got robbed in, and I felt like I had to fight a perfect fight to win, you know, a simple local bout, which, you know, to me, after coming off you know, boxing for Australia for like the last 2 years at that point, it just baffled me as to why I wasn't getting these decisions. And so that was a year that I really had to grind out and really choose to stick into the sport, because I just felt like, well, if I'm giving up everything and trying to put as much as I can into this, and I compete really well, and I was performing in these fights, but I still wasn't getting the win, I was like, it's easy for these judges to rock up and be here for an hour and take away the last 5 weeks that I just put in from a stupid call. So that really challenged me, and I think looking back at it now, it's made my commitment much stronger.
Yeah, I can imagine like that. And is it correct that unlike in other sports, the refs or the judges have such a big say on the boxing matches, and it can be so subjective?
Yeah, definitely. So like boxing as a sport is subjective. It's one person's view of what they think wins. There's obviously like things in place to say, okay, this is what you would rate over in a fight that's going to give that person a round. We just spoke to one of the judges that's involved with the boxing task force, and he was talking about what the scoring is going to be like and what they're going to be looking for at the Olympics, and it's quality of blows. And then quality of blows is subjective. It's like, what's a quality blow? And the more you ask these questions, the more confused you get, eh? So I think it's pretty basic to score a fight. It's like I don't think it takes too much skill or talent. You usually can see who's won a fight, but sometimes these judges don't see that.
Well, you say that, but I'd watch a boxing fight. I'd just see two blokes smashing the shit out of each other. I'd have no idea how to judge it properly. But I know you're ranked 154th in the world, I believe, highest ranked Australian in the men's welterweight. But due to some of those, as you say, unfair decisions that you've been on the end of, do you feel like that should be higher if the kind of you hadn't had luck go against you and you hadn't had these bad decisions and it was fairly judged, to put it simply?
Yeah, I think the rankings are subjective. So I really don't know who's doing the rankings. It doesn't make sense to me because only the top 24 boxers in the world get to go to the Olympics. So
Really?
Other than that, yeah. So some of it doesn't make sense. They only also like count international bouts and things like that, which makes more sense. But some of them they don't keep records of and things like that. So like I've looked up on my box rack and it says that I've had like I think six fights or something like that. But that's
11, I think. Yeah. 11.
Yeah. So 11 meaning just like 11 international competition fights. And then sometimes they're not taking out, inactive fighters, things like that. So.
Oh, well, there you go. It sounds like you've stuck it up, then being ranked 150th or whatever you were, and obviously being in the top 24 to qualify to the Olympics. And sounds like the blokes doing the rankings are blokes like Harps and I and have no bloody idea.
Yeah.
Big shout out to whoever does the rankings if they're listening. But so
I'm actually a bit flat, Harps. I thought Alex was going to say, no, you guys do have ideas. But no, he just laughed. I was fishing for a compliment that didn't come.
Nah, you're all right.
Now, the kind of big issue coming into the Olympics, it's been delayed. So obviously, we all know why it's been delayed. COVID-19, that famous old virus that we all know and don't particularly love. So delayed Olympics for you, good thing or bad thing for you personally?
Take it with a grain of salt, really. I've looked at it as a good thing. I'm a year older. I'm a year more experienced. So if you want to go looking for, the problems, you're going to find it. But if you go looking for the solution, you're also going to find it. So that's how I'm looking at it. It was last year. I'm sure I'm a better fighter than I was last year. There's no way that I can't be. Else I'm doing something wrong in training.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I guess a massive positive is if it was a year ago, you wouldn't have gone to the Where Do We Begin podcast because Harps and I weren't there. But,
there you go.
But I guess talking about that being a better fighter, was your last fight the qualifying fight in March 2020? Was that your last fight?
Yes, it was.
So how does it feel that you've gone from the qualifying? I guess it'd be normal, but it'll be a year and a half almost, and then you'll be fighting the biggest fights of your career.
Yeah, it's a little bit of time out of the ring, but that's just where sparring, and that's going to have to simulate them fights. So the ring rust is in them when we get back into it.
Yeah, so coming into these Olympics, 24 fighters, I believe you said. So that's 1 in 8 getting a spot, getting a medal. Well, what's your goal going into it? Have you got a particular kind of get a medal, or is that a bit too high for you just yet? What's your goal coming into these Olympics?
This is going to be my last amateur tournament, so I'm not settling anything less than gold. You know, they're human like me. I know that I have all the ability to beat them. I've versed all the guys at the top of my division with only 3 or 4 years experience, but you know, they don't know what I'm capable of now.
Buddy, I love that attitude, man. I cannot wait to see you throw a few big punches. I don't know if that's a technical boxing term, but we'll roll with it here. And
yeah, we're gonna drop some on them. I'll tell you that.
But that's interesting. So when you say last amateur tournament, so after this, you're going to go like professional?
Yeah, that's a plan.
Wow, mate, that's great. I had no idea about that. So you're giving us a bit of a big headline there.
Yeah, that's an exclusive.
Yeah, well, let's hope your boss doesn't hear that you're planning on moving on anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly right. He might cut me from the team beforehand.
So coming into these Olympics, now, if you don't want to give anything away, you absolutely do not have to answer this at all if you want. But what do you think are the big areas of concern for your opponents? What are your big strengths when it comes to being in the ring? And yeah, what your opponents are going to be scared of about you, really?
They're going to be looking at old footage of things that all my bad habits and that I used to do. So they're getting prepared for an old fighter, not the one that they're going to face. So
what are you, even if they don't know about it, what are your strengths coming into the Olympics this year?
You know, I'm a very smart boxer, and that's probably my biggest strength besides my ability being fast and being strong. I think that combined is a dangerous fighter, and that's what they're going to see.
Unreal, mate, and I can't wait to see that out on the ring. I'll definitely be tuning in. And have you ever been to Japan before? I mean, Harps and I have both been there. It's an absolute beautiful country. So if the Australian Olympic Committee, if they're listening to this and they want to send a couple of tour guides over, Harps and I, we're very happy. We're happy to show everyone around.
Yeah, definitely.
Show them a good time.
Yeah, no, I haven't been to Japan, so it's going to be an experience in itself. And it's been the only country on my mind for the last 4 years. So, you know, to finally get the ticket to be going, it's making things come to reality.
That's unreal.
There's not much tourism going on for you. It's just all about all about the fights. It's all about the competition. I'm guessing you're just going to be heading over there, competing, coming back, basically, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. They've pretty much let us know that we're only there for our comp, obviously because of COVID. So once you're out, and you're back home, and then back in quarantine to be released afterwards. So it is what it is, but that's what's making it just about the competition in itself. And, you know, some people might get distracted at it being such a big event and it being an Olympics itself. So, you know, I'm here for what I've trained for and not for all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the Olympic party is obviously legendary. You hear about them all the time, but they're not running this year. But you're just there for the medal, which is what we love to hear, mate. And I can't wait to see you with a medal wrapped around your neck.
Thank you very much, bud.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, I probably should have looked this up, but I know there's definitely going to be no overseas people in attendance. Is there going to be anyone in attendance at all?
It's unsure at the moment. Okay. They've been talking about like a local crowd, but whether it happens or it doesn't, you know, that doesn't faze me too much. At the end of the day, no one else is going to be in that ring with me besides the other guy and the referee. So that's all I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. So just a quick one before we kind of get into our wrap this up and get into our famous little last segment. Something that I've been interested in, because we've got a few people and it's their first Olympics, lots of them. So I feel like for lots of them, they're kind of expecting a bit of extra pressure after the Olympics because they'll be considered an Olympian. You're going to be considered by lots of people Alex Winwood, the Olympian, as opposed to just Alex Winwood, the amateur fighter, like people might consider you now. So are you expecting a bit of pressure post-Olympics due to competing at the Olympics, really?
No, not really. Like, I've competed on the national team at 2 World Championships, which is the equivalent of an Olympics, but there's more quota spots. So it is what it is. It's something that boxing as an amateur sport, it's the pinnacle of it. So I am very proud to go there and to represent Australia at the games. But as for having the pressure, it is what it is.
And we can't wait to see you there. And we got our final question, which we always finish on, and it's the life philosophy. So this is really, is there anything that you sort of live your life by, any quote, any words, or any little, idea that you really, helps you throughout your everyday life?
I think just like leaving no stone unturned and being kind to people is really how I take life as it is. And I think that's done me pretty good so far. So I'm not going to skip the script now.
Love it.
Yeah, love that. And Lockie might give you the impression that we are wrapping up, but we've got one last little segment, a famous segment that we run on every show. It is the Where Do We Begin quiz. And I've got to say, I'm very excited for this. So in every episode, I pit Lockie against our guest. I've got 5 questions that all have some loose connection to you and your career, Alex. So, 5 questions. Your name is your buzzer, so buzz in with Alex or Lockie. And we'll start with question 1. Ready to go, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's go for it. So question 1. So Alex was born on the 25th of June, 1997, which you very kindly told me because I could not find it anywhere on the internet. So thanks for that, Alex. Anyway.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, bud.
On the 25th of June, 1997, the number 1 single in Australia was a song that was by Hanson and topped the charts for 9 weeks. What's the name of the song? Any
I've
idea?
got no idea, mate.
I wouldn't have a clue.
Just pass.
Pass it? Okay. I reckon there will be a few people screaming at you two right now because they were a bit of a one-hit wonder. The song was called Bop. One of the most annoying songs of all time. I'd highly recommend not listening to it because it'll get stuck in your head for weeks. So,
mate, can we insert
stay
cricket
away.
noises in? That is not resonated with me at all.
Yeah, well, you might know it when you hear it, but don't listen to it because it is, it's like it pierces you and your soul for like months. It does my head in. Anyway, question 2. So hopefully we can get off the mark here. Well, someone has to get off the mark here, actually, because it's the closest to the pin question. So one of you is going to get it. Obviously, qualifying for the Olympics, you qualified in Jordan. So closest to the pin, what is the current population of Jordan? It's a country we love here at Where Do We Begin? What are our favourites?
16 million.
16 million. Okay, Alex?
Oh, wait,
Lockie?
no. Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to 16 million.
Sure.
16.
Lockie?
I reckon it might be a little bit more. But just because I suck, I'm gonna go 17 million to be safe.
I think it's going to be way more than that, actually.
Yeah, I reckon it might be close to 50.
I was going to say 40, actually. I'm going to change mine to 40.
50. I'll go 50 because I do think it's actually 50.
Okay, you guys, I might have to cut this out to make you not look like idiots because it's 10 million.
Oh, damn.
10.29 million. So I'm going to give Alex the point.
Okay.
Jeez, that's a blind leading the blind there, Alex.
Exactly right.
Very lucky to get the point there, Alex, because you were way off if you wanted to change yours to 40.
Yeah, you just go up or down, and then whoever gets the closest, that's what it is.
Yeah, well, if you said
Might as well
100
one
and Lockie
person
said
apart.
101 million,
Exactly
you would have
right.
been right. Hey, anyway, go to question 3. Alex is 1-0 up. So, of course, your chosen profession, your chosen sport is boxing. So I've got a little question about boxers. So if you remember your high school maths, you might get this question. So if a cubic box, has the dimensions of 4 meters in length, 4 meters in width, and 4 meters in height, what is the volume of the box?
4 square meters.
That is incorrect. Lockie, do you want to have a shot? It's
Oh,
4
mate,
by
so
4
what's
by
the
4.
volume? I do not. This is embarrassing. So like, I think maths is one of those things where like if you're 10 where you're learning volume, you'll do it. But considering I haven't touched any shape since I was about 12, I've got. Gee whiz, this is actually a struggle. I'm not sure if it's 4 times 4 or 4 times 4 times 4, but I think because it's 3-dimensional, it's 4 times 4 times 4. So what's that? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. What's 16?
Listeners love this. It's great
64.
64. Your teacher would tell you to add the meters cubed, but I'll give it to you. Lockie, 1 point. 64 cubic meters. Very nice.
Once I realised, I was like, oh, shit, we're talking about a box. We're not talking about paving.
Yeah. Fair enough. Anyway, we'll move to question 4. So, of course, you'll be in Japan in just a couple of months' time, even sooner.
And we might be two halves. We've plugged ourselves.
Yeah, exactly right.
For the call
if the
from the Olympic
AOC
Committee.
sorts us out with some tour guide visas or whatever, it'll be very nice. So anyway, question 4. So I'm going to alternate between the two of you for this one, and whoever gets one wrong first loses the point. Other person gets the point. So there's a list of the 10 most populous Japanese cities. We're just going to go Lockie, Alex, or Alex, Lockie. So go for it. Whoever wants to go first. 10 most populous.
Lockie, you can go first.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I'll just go Tokyo.
Tokyo, yep. He's taking the easy one.
I think it's Kyoto.
Would be Kyoto.
Yep.
Are we counting Yokohama as part of Tokyo?
Damn, that's me dumb.
Well, yeah, you can say Yokohama. I'll give it to you.
Yokohama.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's about as all the towns I know, so I'm finished now.
Do you want to have any kind of guess? Do you know a city that might be in Japan or a name that vaguely rings a bell? Do you want to just take a stab?
I'm trying to remember this damn book that I read. It was all about Japan too.
This is why you need tour guides.
Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly.
Wait, Olympic Committee, we need these guys here. I'll tell you now.
Yeah.
Nah,
yeah.
I'm done. We've got one apiece now.
Okay.
2 apiece. 2-1.
Yeah, Lockie's up 2-1.
I reckon I could go a few there, halves. I reckon there'd be Osaka, Hiroshima, Niseko and Sapporo. What else? Don't know. I don't know the other ones, but
You don't get any more points for this, I'll tell you that now.
Yeah, I'm not giving you any more points.
just exactly the place
right.
I went to.
Anyway, you dished a few off there. So top 10, Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka, Nagoya, Sapporo, Kobe, Kyoto, Fukuoka, Kawasaki, and Saitama. Saitama's kind of part of Tokyo maybe as well, but we're counting it separately. Anyway, move to question 5. Lockie's 2-1 up, but Alex is still in with a shot because it's a who am I question. Going to go down from 5 points all the way down to 1 point with a series of clues. And once you get one wrong, once you buzz in and get the answer wrong, you can't buzz in again till the other person gets it wrong. So I'll start with a 5-point clue, all leading to who I am. So for 5 points, I was born on the 25th of June, so sharing your birthday, monumental day, great day, 25th of June. I was born on the 25th of June, 1961, to Lawrence and Eva. I'll move on to question 4 because you guys probably don't know who Lawrence and Eva are as of yet. So for 4 points, I went to University College London where I met my partner of 39 years, Jane Fallon, and she's still my partner, actually. Well, not my partner, this person's partner.
Alex?
Going early.
Just because of the last name, I'm just going to chuck, nah. Jimmy Fallon.
Is incorrect.
Damn.
Oh, he's gone very, very early and he's gone...
No, that's okay.
Anyway, Lockie can just cruise through this because there's no pressure on him. He's winning and he's the only one that can answer. So for 3 points, after initially attempting a career as a pop star in the 80s, I changed tack and appeared on TV's The 11 O'Clock Show between 1998 and 2000, garnering a reputation as a blunt and often controversial social critic.
I know who it is. Damn.
You know who it is?
Yeah.
I've got no idea, but I wanna make it. We'll go to the 2-point question, and then I reckon we buzz Alex in, add Alex.
Oh no, I've googled it. That's cheating.
Oh,
I can't.
googled it.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say if you got it from that would have been very, very good. But he's googled it. So.
You could have still won because if I get it wrong,
I can't cheat like that. I never cheat.
I know.
Anyway, Yeah, should have kept that on the download, mate. Anyway, we'll move to the 2-point clue. I made my breakthrough co-writing and co-directing 2 shows with Stephen Merchant, one of which had a famous US version.
Lachlan?
Yep.
Is it
Lachlan?
Ricky Gervais?
Spot on. Ricky Gervais.
I'm surprised that you got that. You're a
Is that
beast.
what Google said, Alex?
I heard.
No, I just Googled her name and it was like Ricky Gervais. So I was like,
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
yes, makes so much sense now.
I just thought of The Office, and then I'm like, yeah, there's the US, and that's the thing I gave it to. I just thought of The Office.
Anyway, Alex, I think we better let you go. You've been super generous with your time, of course. To our listeners, you can check out Alex's Song of the Week, the Song of the Week choice at our Instagram page at WDWB Pod. That's WDWB Pod on Instagram. Get on it. Thank you very much, Alex, for coming on, mate. It's seriously been a
thanks
pleasure.
for
I've loved
having
it.
me.
Thanks so much for having us.
Cheers for giving us the L, Lockie.
Thanks so much for that, Alex. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, mate. I just want to go run through a brick wall. I want to punch some holes in the wall. I'm absolutely pumped after that, mate. It was so much fun having you on.
Oh, yes, it was so good. You could call it a crusket. It was that much of a cracker. It was awesome. So thank you very much, Alex, for coming on. Thank you to all our listeners for listening. And we've actually got a little message for you guys. We've spoken about it in the last couple of weeks. We're not taking any money from any shitty advertising brands that we don't believe in and that are untrustworthy just to kind of get all the greed out of it. We're not doing none of that. So instead, what we're doing, we're starting up a Buy Me a Coffee. I'm sure you guys all know what that is. You can donate as little as you want. You can donate 5 cents if you want, or you can donate as much as you want. Every cent counts. If you're going to buy a pack of gum today, maybe don't buy the pack of gum. Give us a couple bucks. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin and support our quality, free and independent service that we give to you all, and we put a lot of work in. It will be much appreciated.
Buddy, love it, Harps. And I just also like to say a quick thanks to all the listeners, and thank you so much for your support. It was an absolute pleasure to be back, and looking forward to being back next week.
So am I. Buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin. That's the link you go to. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We're having another Olympic special this time next week. See ya.
See ya.